today's service is going to be a little bit different. If I can have group one start coming up to the stage. We spent a little over a week in Costa Rica about a week ago. And so we're here to just talk about our experiences. Harmers, that's you. So just a little bit about Encuentro real quick. So it started, we think, in the 80s. And about 10 years ago, they started staying together in one location. So like seminaries and churches that used to be at hotels. So it's been really cool to see that experience. And then, let's see here. I think that was it. Oh, the people that we took with us. So we had probably about 10 teenagers, and then the rest of us were adults, so 21 of us. I will say the youngest was 13, and our oldest was 72. So it's a multi-generational. I think that's one of my favorite things about this trip. So we have different groups that are going to be sitting up with us today, and I have questions. Jacob's going to ask questions as well. So my first question is, can someone tell us like what our day-to-day looked like?
Okay, so we would get up in the morning and we would have breakfast. We would have service, which was amazing. And then we would get on buses and go to our work places. Ours was a little church. It's called Barrio. We would do our work. Then we would have our lunches, our sack lunches, our peanut butter and jellies every day. But then about 3 o'clock, they would have siesta for us. And that was difficult for us because we were all busy working. And we didn't want to stop. So we would stop, and they would have coffee and snacks for us. Then we would get back to work. And about 5 o'clock, they would have dinner for us. Amazing food. A lot of rice and beans, but still, it was amazing food. Amazing food. Then we would pack up on our buses and go back to the church.
Yeah, that's one of my next questions was talk about the food. If somebody wants to talk about the food.
I'll do it. Okay, so usually for breakfast, we had rice and beans. We often had some kind of fruit like pineapple or water. We had a lot of pineapple. I think Jeremy at one point said we had probably each person ate 2 full pineapples while we were there, which it was delicious because it was fresh. You know, they grow it, so it's wonderful. And one day for breakfast, we had a hot dog with our rice and beans. We had rice with eggs mixed in it. So, I mean, like any way you can make rice, we had it. Then, of course, as Janet said, we had peanut butter and jelly for lunch every day. And, but our siestas, we had fruit. We had mostly, they also had a watermelon snack that came around most days too. The people down at the park for VBS and stuff, we missed that. But when the park people started working more at the building, we were like, hey, we were missing out on a watermelon snack mid-morning. But they also had, in siesta time, it was always some fruit. We had papaya, we had watermelon quite often, pineapple. We've had pastries, and Doreen headed up for us. The pastor, who is also the DS, owns his own bakery. So we wanted to support the bakery, so she organized us all to donate some cash, and the last day they brought in lots of delicious baked goods from his bakery for our siesta, so that was fun that day too. We had so many we even took it back and shared with others. Our dinners were more rice and beans mixed with different meats and fruits and salads. I mean, it was all good. We were joking when we came back. We didn't want rice and beans anymore, but I think I'm getting past that now. The water thing, I think most of us, it's like you have the water. We could drink their water, because a lot of people have asked me that. We could drink their water, but it was all lukewarm. So we were all looking forward to ice when we could have ice again. And Jeremy, my husband, who's not here because he's working, he was on the medical team. And one day they went out to dinner, and he took a picture of a glass of ice water all sweaty with condensation to bring back to show us. Because we were all like, we can't wait to get to land in Baltimore and get ice. And he rubbed it in that he got ice in midweek. But
one thing interesting with the salad is we did not have salad dressing.
Yeah.
So it was just lettuce and whatever else they put on it. I thought that was interesting. Last question that I have for this group. So what did the evenings look like after we came back from our day of work and dinner with our group?
Real quickly to add on to the siesta, one thing God spoke to me about that whole week was, as Janet said, the first day we ate for 5 minutes and then got up and started painting. And we didn't realize, I was speaking with Matt Rivera about it, that we were kind of being a little disrespectful because their siesta is 30 minutes. You need to sit for 30 minutes and relax. And I'm a kind of busy person, a lot of you are busy people. If you actually just sit and listen to the people around you and listen to what God's speaking to you about, you get a lot out of that 30 minutes. So I encourage you to take time throughout your week to just sit and listen for what God's trying to tell you, because he really spoke to me in the last 2 weeks. Our evenings, when we came back, everybody had had supper at their local churches, so many of the people did a lot of volleyball games. I'm pointing at Abs because she was out there on the volleyball court. Lindsay Cathers is a beast on the volleyball court, and if you have a team, you need another woman, Patsy Harvey is your lady. She was awesome on the volleyball court. So there was a lot of volleyball. People played cards. We were fortunate to have a big deck right outside of the ladies' room, so that was kind of our meeting place where we kind of met up a little bit. I don't know if Amber wants me to talk a little bit about the cafe. There was a cafe in the church that we stayed in, and it was a local lady that had started this cafe, and every day there was fresh baked goods. There was 6 or 7 domes that had fresh cakes under them. We have one lady in the crowd, and she's smiling at me, and I won't call her name out, but she tasted every one of them, and she loved every one of them. And if we had one that she didn't taste, she tasted ours, so it was a good one. She was just pointed out by somebody, but it was awesome. And the thing was, Encuentro didn't have any coffee at night so that we could help support this lady's ministry of this little cafe that was up there. She had milkshakes and all kinds of stuff, but it was really good that we were able to support them locally also.
And I didn't share it with the group. Sorry, I forgot. The lady actually wrote a thank you note to all of Encuentro and just said, thank you so much for supporting my business. It was a huge blessing because we were week 2. So there was a whole nother group there week 1, and just the amount of blessing that she received financially from us, she was pretty amazed by it all. All right, well, that's it for group 1.
Awesome. One of the things I do want to point out to you is it wasn't just our group of 31 that was in Costa Rica. Our week at our site, so we're the bottom picture here, there was 260 people at our site. So we were a group of 31. We had another group of 17 that joined us at our local church. But we had people going all over the place in Costa Rica serving. And so it was pretty overwhelming to be a part of.
This is more of my construction people, which is obviously why I'm leading this topic. Obviously, you saw in that video, there was a lot of fun things that we did. We went zip lining, and we went and saw some waterfalls and got to swim in the Pacific Ocean, and it was all really, really cool. But one of the most important things that we did there is we worked, and we worked really, really hard. This team that is getting ready to share here, they were amazing in what they were able to do. And so we got a mic. Is that on there, Layla?
Yeah.
All right. I don't have a favorite in this group, but hey, I want to, the first picture here, Melisha, I want to talk about something real important. So after day 1, so we had a lot of projects. I mean, this pastor has a crazy vision for what he wants to do in the church. And so we all just kind of did our own thing, right? We just kind of scattered and we just started painting and doing different projects. And we got back that night and we're like, man, we accomplished a lot, but it was also kind of a train wreck. We needed a leader. And so we were sitting on the porch at night and we all just said, yeah, we really need a leader. And we kind of started looking around, who could lead this group? Who was the one who stood out that I gave her the nickname Pharaoh, who kept us going. And she was not even afraid of Pastor Jacob to say, what are you doing right now? Like, where's your paintbrush? And so Layla, my friend here, led our team. And I will just tell you, yeah. And this just wasn't like an honorary thing. She did it, and she killed it, all right? So Layla, I just have a question for you, kind of as we start our construction talk here. How was it leading this fun group?
Oh boy. Well, at first, when I said something, I was kind of being a smart aleck, and I was like, "Oh, I'll lead." And then he was like, "Okay, you're leading," and I was like, "Oh, great." But it ended up being a really great thing. I learned how to lead as we went, and I learned how to adapt because there would be hours of rain where all the outside activities had to stop, and we had to start painting and doing stuff inside. But there were people older than me, younger than me, that had more capabilities than me, and I still did it. And I learned from them, and they learned from me, and it was just overall a great thing.
It was amazing. Somebody talk about the projects that we did. What are some of the things that we did at the church? Perfect, Steve. Thank you. I love how this works. Yeah.
Well, there's a picture right there of one of the walls that it was falling apart. We ended up bracing that wall, welding some plates on it.
Just talk into the mic.
And can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good.
I'll say I can sing if you want. No, that was one of the projects, and then there was several projects. But we worked together with a couple other churches. One was with Indiana. The guy his name is Jorge, was local with the church. The guy was amazing. He brought us scaffoldings that we didn't even expect. The welder, we kept blowing fuses, but I won't even explain how he did it, but because it would go against any OSHA. Yeah, we can't talk about that anymore. So it was awesome. I mean, everybody that was there at Costa Rica, they were just absolutely amazing, giving us what we needed, even though we didn't expect to get a lot of the things that we were going to get. I think one of the hardest things for painting was all those rebars that you see on the pictures there. It's just amazing how people were painting those. My mind there's no way I could have done that, just because it was so meticulous, painting everything. So what other things do we have?
Yeah.
The stucco.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that because the Indiana guys did it, most of it. So it was okay. No, they did a great job. And then it rained one day, and I think 4 panels ended up washing off. They had to redo 4 panels. No, we worked great together. It was awesome. What other things we have?
So we painted inside the church, or the group before us painted inside the church, outside the church. We did a lot of cut work. This is like the back wall of the church here. And so we painted all of that, and we painted the back wall of the church. Obviously, you see the white everywhere, and then they really wanted great accent everywhere. When we left, it was beautiful. It was like a completely different church. It was really, really cool. Somebody else wants to talk about some of the jobs that we did. Go ahead, Pat.
Well, painting was the word of the week because we painted and painted and painted. Not only at the church, but there was a soccer field that had been left in disrepair that the church had gone to the city and taken over. And there was a basketball court that was left in disrepair that the church had gone to the city and had taken over. And we painted a concession stand, shower rooms, concrete block walls, basketball hoops, the standards, and the backboards. I mean, painted everything. And hopefully that left a space for the people in that community that can come together and join in the sharing of themselves and the people that are down there.
Okay, yeah, we did the basketball court, and that only took a few hours. Basically, they just wanted the one wall painted white, and then we had to paint the basketball, like the goals, the hoops. That was really fun. But while we were doing that, Rachel from Indiana had brought a whole suitcase full of deflated volleyballs and basketballs. And it was so cute because she blew one of them up, and a little boy had come around the corner, and she gave it to him. And I don't know how to say it in Spanish, but the look in his eyes was, I get to keep this? And his eyes just were really big, and I'm sure he said thank you several times. And then he left, and next thing we know, there's like 3 boys come around the corner, and then a couple of girls come around the corner. And so she blew up the whole, pardon? Parents. And parents, yeah. And so she blew up all of the volleyballs and basketballs and just passed them out to all the kids, and the kids were so grateful and so thankful. It was really cute to watch. But it's funny, at the basketball court, they did not ask us to paint a gray stripe along the bottom, which, I mean, they wanted a gray stripe on everything. You can see it right there. There's a gray stripe along that bottom. There's a gray stripe in every room, right, Lindsay? Yeah, she was our gray stripe girl. But yeah, at the basketball court, I kept waiting for them to say, we need you to paint a gray stripe, and they didn't. So that was kind of good. But yes, it was a great experience all in all.
Melisha, is there a last picture with Steve? Hey, can we hand the mic back to Steve? Steve, I want to touch on this really quick. So obviously this is Steve, who's a part of our group, and this is Yahida. Yahida is a part of the church. She does a lot of the kids ministry. She helped lead the VBS for us during the week. Amber's going to talk about Yahida in just a few moments. She is amazing. Steve, tell us just a little bit about, why does Yahida have a Bible?
So before we went down, me and Denise bought that Bible right there. It's bilingual. So it's English on the left side and Spanish on the right. And we gave it to Bella and Ellie because we didn't know what to do with this Bible. I knew it was going to go to somebody. We just didn't know who. So because Ellie and Bella was working with the youth, and I think it was Friday, Bella and Ellie came up to me and Denise and said, well, we found somebody to give this Bible to. Because she was working with Bella and Ellie, and she was also trying to speak English. So they're like, that's a perfect person to get where she can have English and Spanish Bible. So Bella and Ellie ended up giving it to her. And then she came up and she told me, she goes, thank you so much. I was actually praying for God to give me a Bible. And I was just like, there were so many cod shots through this whole process. And I wrote a bunch of them. I'd be out here an hour, but that was absolutely one of them where she never had a Bible at all. And she was praying God to give her a Bible, and here she has this Bible. So that was probably one of the highlights of the moments.
Amazing. Can we give this team a round of applause? Come on up.
Flexibility and adaptability. So I was a part of the VBS team, and we had no interpreters. Usually in Encuentro gives you at least 2, and this time around they didn't. So Ellie actually invited one of her friends who is a Spanish major, and I was like, perfect, this is gonna help us out so much. So I was expecting her to go to VBS with us. She was gonna teach the lesson. She had a lesson written only in Spanish, and Pastor Alex was like, I need Bella here because of just the communication. It was really difficult having this language barrier. They weren't understanding what we were going to do, what we wanted them to do. So it was just really, really good that she was there. So I needed to learn to be flexible and adapt in that situation. Day 1 was kind of a hot mess, wasn't it? So after we kind of figured out what we were doing, the youth pastor and Yahida, they kind of took over for us, and we were there to help. So what did VBS look like once we got situated?
So I didn't actually go to VBS on the second day because I helped with the medical clinic. But what I got out of that was there was a assistant youth pastor from the church that, what was his name? Alberto. And he was awesome with the kids. He had a lot of energy. And the first day I remember he did a story and he talked about a butterfly and basically how God can change you and make you new. And then I remember, I don't know if it was, I think it was on Thursday, he talked about the plan of salvation. And he was talking about also the pearly gates and having your name written in the book of life. And basically having security, knowing that you're going to heaven. And then we did paintings. And the kids who probably don't typically get to do that, we had brought paint and canvases and brushes, which was kind of hard to do at the park. So we put down plastic. And they just love that. They were so excited to do that. But they were doing pictures of like the pearly gates and the Bible. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was just really staticky.
All right.
Yeah, so the painting probably was my favorite part, and there's a picture of them all holding their paintings up. They were asking to take extra canvases home. Can I take the paint home? Can I take brushes home? So it was really cool for that. What kind of games did we play?
So the one game I remember.
Okay.
Oh, okay. The one game I remember was we played Pacto Pacto Gonzo, which is their version of like Duck Duck Goose, which I thought was. Hello? Okay. So the one game that I remember is the game called Pacto Pacto Gonzo, which is their version of Duck Duck Goose, which I really thought was really fun. And just getting to know their like different games they play. We also played this one. It was this mouse one, cat and mouse. So was it the mouse in the middle? Like it was like a mouse in the middle inside this. We all hold hands, and we were the house of the mouse. So the mouse was inside of us. And there was this whole little conversation between the mouse and cat, which the cat was on the outside. And so we were just running around in circles around the house, going in and out of people's arms. I can't really explain it. I just ran. So yeah, that was a really fun game.
So like I said, there was one day we actually had somebody that spoke English. It was Berto's fiance, so that was really nice. She's the one who actually taught us that cat and mouse game, which was, they all loved it. We had a hard time understanding it, but they all loved it. But how difficult or how easy was it to build relationships with the kids when we couldn't communicate with them?
I say building a relationship with the kids was really easy because they were very patient and we had Google Translate, of course, and just them being around us made them really happy, and they just love to talk. Even if I'm just like, what? They'll just keep going. So they're just like, you don't understand. I'm like, what? But it was really fun. Yeah, it was really fun still talking to them, and they still built connections.
Even though we didn't speak the same language verbally, we spoke the same language physically. A hug was a hug, a kiss on the cheek was a kiss on the cheek, a little heart, noted how they make the hearts. And luckily, after the first day, several of the mothers of the children that were visiting our VBS also came. And they became involved in the games and in the communication and helping out with things that we needed help with to understand the kids. That little picture there with my little buddies, I tell you, the first day they came, the little guy in the American shorts, right straight up to me. We hadn't been there 10 minutes, looked up and said, hi. I said, oh, hi, you speak English? He said, a little bit. And I said, okay. So his mom come over and explained that they were twins and that she was teaching them English. So it was good to have her there to help as a translator. But the little guy in the American shorts. Emiliano is his name, and what's his brother's name? Mystique. It's a Spanish name. Doreen was a part of it too. But he just latched on. In any game he was playing, he wanted me in there. Anywhere he went, that's where I had to be. Took a water break. Their water breaks are half-filled baggie, tied in a knot. The kids bite one of the pointy ends off and drink the water out of the baggie. It was normal to them. They had no clue that that wasn't something that everybody does. He brought his baggie up and offered me to share his baggie of water. And I said, "Oh, honey, thank you." And I showed him my water bottle. And he turned around and started to walk away, and he turned back around and he said, "I love you." I said, "Oh, I love you too." And so we became very, very close. He didn't come back Tuesday or Wednesday. They showed up Thursday, and through talking with them, found out their grandmother was actually the head lady at our church who did all the cooking that we were working at. She was in charge of all of our meals at the church, and so it just goes to show what a small world it really is. All of the children, extremely polite, very well behaved. We had probably from 13 to age 3. Everybody was involved in anything and everything that we did. Like I said, no complaining. The big kids helped the little kids. It was really a very, very blessing experience to see that. And between the love they showed, the thankfulness, the gratefulness, it just made it all worth it. Just made it all worth it.
The little boy with the American flag shorts, you didn't say this, but I wanted to say it. He did have a different shirt on. We played water games that day, so he changed his shirt. But he wore an American flag shirt, and he wanted to wear it for Michelle because we're Americans. So I thought that was really sweet. One other thing that I won't make Corbin talk about, but all the boys wanted to do was play soccer. So they sometimes would not come and participate because they wanted to be playing soccer. And Jacob played a lot of soccer with them. Corbin played a lot of soccer with them. They learned Corbin's name. He probably didn't learn anybody's name because you know how much he talks. But he was on the field with the kids, and that was really cool to watch. And then the last thing I want to say real quick, I don't mean to call you out, Layla, but she doesn't have a shirt on because she decided to leave all of her clothes in Costa Rica for the kids that need clothes. So she gave everything that she brought with her. And I just wanted to share that with you because that is very awesome of what you did, providing clothes for kids there. But that is it for group 3, so you guys can go ahead and have a seat, and we're going to bring up group 4.
So one of the last things that we just want to talk about real quick is obviously when you go on a mission trip, like what do you think? Like you're going to work, right? And we had that idea, several on our team, hey, we're just going to work. Well, that is not all that you do on a missions trip. We also were a part of worship services, and we heard some amazing speakers who really challenged us. We met together as a small group and just talked about, hey, what is God saying to you throughout the week? And we learned that it wasn't all about the work, but it was also about what God was teaching us. And so I want to give this group just a little bit to talk. You could talk about the services that we were part of, the speakers. You could talk about maybe what God was teaching you and showing you when we were in Costa Rica. So thank you, Patsy, for going first.
Thank you, Jacob. Well, the lady that is on the screen right now is similar to what Michelle experienced. I don't know what it was, but she, eye contact latched onto me on the first day. She still cannot say my name, and I still cannot say her name. But believe it or not, we have text every day since I left. One of the things that really, really struck me is to actually not only say you are the hands and feet of God, but to feel that you are the hands and feet of God. Standing in these worship services, whether it was in the morning with just all these 200 to 300 people that all sang and spoke English, was amazing. But when we had the evening service and the church came and it was done in Spanish and it was done in English, to have people next to you singing to the same God, praising the same God that you are, but you have no idea what they're saying. But seeing their smile and feeling their hugs was just so touching to me. And to know that someone cared enough about me to want to stay in contact with me through all of this technology that I was totally against through the whole trip. I was one of those that did not have my phone on and chose to really take some quiet time to myself. Others really used it well because they used the translator or they used a lot of their pictures. But because now that I'm home and I got on this WhatsApp thing, that she's now able to communicate with me. And it's just a mission trip. I was supposed to just work. I was just supposed to go, and my parents did mission trips, and I really felt my dad was there this week with me. One of the songs we sang, Blessed Assurance, was his song. My son sang that at his life celebration, and I just really felt so many people were with me this whole trip, and I just really feel strong.
I like to work, and God used the simplest, strangest things to just really convict me. We showed up, and the pastor in Spanish explained that he wanted a gray striped line at the bottom of the walls that had been painted white. And I judgmentally, in my head, thought, well, that's ridiculous. We are amateur painters at best. The tape is humid and wet. The wall is not smooth. And so the quality of line is going to be atrocious, and I do not want to be a part of this. You have now seen the ugly side of Lindsay. But I didn't verbalize that. I let it play out that there was a discrepancy on if it was 8 inches off the ground or 4 inches off the ground. So we had a minor delay, and I begrudgingly thought, well, if anybody's going to do this line, it's going to be me, because we're going to make it the best we can. And so in a spirit of control, I proceeded to attempt the line independently, and I was not unwelcoming of others' help, but perhaps not overly encouraging. And I reminded them that if they weren't interested in detail work, perhaps there was a better place for them. And also indicated that it wasn't too big of a job. Don't worry, and I am youngish, and I can get down on the ground, and so on and so forth. Well, we took up the tape off the first line, and don't you know I puffed my chest out because that line looked good. Okay, it looked real good. And so I thought, well, on to the next task. And then the pastor showed up and said, Raya aquí, which is stripe here. Todos, everywhere. The entire building, he wanted gray lines, okay? Classrooms, baños. You ever crawled underneath a toilet and painted a gray line? That entire alleyway, okay? And so don't you know, God just said, you thought you could do this. You thought you were in charge of this trip. This was day one. And yep, there's the line, one of them. And so then he sent a group back from VBS. I love my VBS friends, but as I had started the second line, still a little bit prideful and controlling. And 6 of them jumped on the line and just started slopping paint up. And I just sat for a minute, and I thought, this is the choice you make on this trip. Are you going to accept that when the strength God gave you isn't used in pursuit of Him, but it's used pridefully, that it is not a gift from God? It is a sinful choice. And so don't you know that second line looked just as good, if not better, than the first one that I had decided to do all on my own. And so this story has gone on too long, and I will wrap up, but I will just say that God reminded me that the only things I have that are worth anything are things he gave me. And if I don't seek him first, not what he provides, not what he gives me, not the answers, but if I don't seek him and relationship, which is why that Trust in God song, when Holly said we were going to sing it, that was my anthem of the week. I sought the Lord, and he heard, and then he answered, but only after I seek. And so I was just really convicted around no matter what you're facing, and there are things in life right now that I want an answer on badly. But he just told me, don't seek my answer, seek me. And that was my experience.
For those of you who don't know me, and some of you know this really well, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 7, in a time when people really didn't do that. But what I've learned for myself is that music is the one thing that shuts my brain down. Music is the one thing that allows me to be still. And Sunday morning, we got up and got in our dresses that I also don't wear. And that was out of my comfort zone, that more so than anything else I think we did all week. Ladies and gentlemen, I wore a dress. But we went to church. And our same friend who Patsy is in touch with, I'm not going to lie, if I didn't know any better, we thought she would have been the pastor. She led worship, and it was beautiful. We had music and the same songs we sang today in English, and we had them in Spanish, and it didn't matter. None of that mattered. The language barrier didn't matter. And then we worshiped all week long, and we had some amazing speakers, and they talked about God's call on your life, and that everyone has a call. God has called each and every one of us. He may not have called you to missions. He may not have called you to be a teacher or a pastor, but God has called you. He's just waiting for you to answer, like Lindsay said. But Friday night, we were exhausted. We had worked all week long, and I don't know if you know anything about the temperature in Costa Rica. It's not hot. It was only in the mid-70s, but the humidity sucked everything out of us. And we were tired. Friday, we had gone off to our excursion. Some of us went to a waterfall. Some of us went to zip lining. No matter what, I think we all walked 1.5 miles up and down mountains all day. And worship came, and we were exhausted, but our churches were coming. And it was their worship team. And their worship team was beyond phenomenal. It was, no matter how tired we were, it was so restorative. It was everything that you could ever want from a worship service. We sang in Spanish, we sang in English. They switched back and forth in multiple places in multiple songs. And again, it didn't matter. Their worship was phenomenal. I felt so awake and alive after sitting there and just being a part of it. And it was so refreshing to have that bit of peace, because I don't often, my brain, I feel like it goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and never stops. But it stopped. And I was able to find peace, and I was able to just listen to what God was saying to me, which was that there is peace in that no matter how we're called. And actually, ironically enough, we were listening to Frozen on the way to church this morning, and the song Into the Unknown was exactly what we had talked about all week long. that we are stepping into the unknown, but we are not doing it alone. I have 30 people in my family now, people that I knew and I loved, but now they're like part of my family. So we're not doing this alone. God doesn't want us to do it alone. We have each other. And that, I think, was the biggest takeaway from the week, at least for me, is that we have each other. And we came to work, but we came home as a family.
So if you ever met me, you know, I like to talk a lot. I love talking. And for me, knowing someone's language is a big deal because I talk to everybody. And I'm not sure there's a photo of me. I was up on a ladder for like 6 hours, like 2 days in a row. And there was Jorge, and he was a joker. He loved to mess with me on that ladder. And at some point, me and him were on opposite sides of a gate, and he would look at me and just go, and I was laughing so hard at him. And a couple of minutes later, he got down and walked around, and he came back and poked his head around the corner and went, "Coffee, get down, coffee," and kind of ushered me over. And just finding friends that I communicated through body language in the most simple terms ever. I noticed a couple of the ladies in the kitchen. I helped them broom water off when it was raining, but I would say gracias to them. As I walked by, I would just gracias, thank you for passing me food, and they would return it in English. They would say, "You're welcome," or they would say, "Thank you," to me, and we sort of bounced back and forth between me saying thank you in Spanish and them saying thank you in English, and just that made me feel like I knew them, like really knew them. It was through body language and being able to help. I always watched out for when they started bringing food from the kitchen because it was an uphill slope. There was no stairs. And I would always run down to go make sure they had help up the ramp, especially when it was raining because it was really slippery. And so it was really meeting people that I didn't think I would usually meet, just making friends with them. And Aaron was one of the little boys. And no matter what game he was playing, he would drag you into it. And he did not speak any English, but we figured it out. We were playing dice games and their version of Duck, Duck, Goose, and it was so much fun. I found myself smiling and laughing more than I've smiled and laughed in a long time. And just getting to know my church family. I mean, I hang out with the youth mostly. I'm a teenager. But there was more adults than youth on this trip, so I got to know Karen and Patsy and Lindsay and even Connie, who's sitting right in front of me, so much better than I did before. And I just feel so much closer to my church family. So I think it was really finding friends. That's where I found it, knowing I could find them no matter where I am.
I just wanted to say it was a wonderful trip. And the first day we got to the work site, I look at all this painting that needs to be done that we have to do. And I said to Jacob, "Why aren't they painting, you know?" And he said, "They don't have money to buy anything." And I'm so thankful that we all were able to pay for our trip and that the church all helped us go and that we could help these people because they were taking pride in it. Every day more of them were coming and they were painting with us. And America is so blessed. And to see them love the same God, sing the same songs, it's amazing. It was an amazing trip.
Thank you so much. You guys can have a seat. So we could go on for another hour. We're not going to do that. But you see all these people, and they either have blue or red shirts on. We're going to have a luncheon right after our service. We would ask you to stay with us and have lunch and ask stories, and they'll probably annoy you with all their stories. But God showed up in an amazing way in Costa Rica. It's amazing when you leave your current reality and you have to go a couple thousand miles away to hear God. But sometimes we need that. Sometimes when you have to force to shut off your phone and you have to shut off some of the distractions of work and life and family to go all the way to a place called Costa Rica so you could hear from God. It's one thing that our speakers talked about over and over again. What is God calling you to? I have one slide that I want to show you as we close here this morning. These are just some of the different ways that God called and talked with our people this week. These are not my things. These are theirs. This is what God is calling them to do, that they need to move. I love, somebody wrote on their card, just said move. I don't even know what it means, but this year I'm just going to pray and ask God what he wants me to do. But I know that God wants me to move. I don't know if it's physically. I don't know if it's in my spiritual life. I don't know if it's in relationships. I don't know what it is. But God just gave me this word that I need to move. I love that. To seek him first. You heard, that's Lindsay's. I just called her out, but she said it. I need my church family. I need church in my life. One of the things that we realized as this weird group of 31 people, we were all so different, but when we spent time together in Costa Rica, we learned to love one another. We had such a great time on the porch, getting to know each other's stories, your spiritual journeys, our struggles, or things that are going on in our family. We had this appreciation for our church. And what I reminded our group is we have another 200 people back at home that are amazing people that you all need to get to know, to listen to God, to understand. Somebody said, I didn't realize that my job was my mission field. I didn't understand that I didn't have to be a pastor or a missionary or whatever, that God was calling me exactly where he placed me in my job. Connect people to Jesus. Somebody else put, my neighborhood. I need to walk at night and not just walk for exercise, but walk to get to know my neighbors by name. So eventually it can move to a place where I could share Jesus with my neighbors. Like, this is how God showed up. He spoke to each one of us in so many different ways. That's who our God is. God is not hiding from you. God wants to speak to you. And sometimes he can do it here in your current realities, but sometimes you got to go a couple thousand miles away to hear the voice of God clearly. And sometimes it's not even a voice. Sometimes it's through a little kid. Sometimes it's through a family. Sometimes it's a pastor who's preaching and you don't even know what he's saying, but you know that the Spirit of God is real and present in that place. So I hope that you've heard just a little bit about how God changed us as a group over the last 8 days that we were in Costa Rica, and you're probably wondering, when do I get to go? I'm so glad you asked that question, because I have one more slide. Next summer, we are taking 2 more mission trips next year, and we want you to consider it and to be a part of it. One of the groups is with Crossroad Missions. It's in Appalachia. This one is for our youth. Pastor Isaac is going to be leading a group of kids that are in junior high and senior high, and we are so excited. Appalachia, if you've never been there, it's a different part of our country. There is a lot of need there in that place, and I'm excited that our youth get to be a part of that. We are also taking an adult group to South Texas. We have a ministry in the Church of the Nazarene that is working on the border there with immigrants, teaching them the language, teaching them English, helping them get documents, offering and sharing Jesus with them, feeding them, clothing them. And we are going to take a group. My wife, Amber, who led our group amazingly, will be leading this group to South Texas next summer. There is opportunities for you to serve locally in our Serve Sundays, but we want to also continue to offer these trips next year here in the United States, and then in 2 years, we'll look to go international again. But I will tell you, a trip like this will change your life. Ask anybody in these goofy t-shirts, their life was changed. And I would challenge you, put June 2025 on your calendar to join us, all ages. It was really cool, 13 to 73, to have on a trip. To hear from God together was really, really cool. Will you stand with us?